Hey friends, today I wanted to talk to you about flow cycle. And what is flow? If you're new to the channel or if you have been following me, flow is the state of performance where you feel at your best and you perform at your best. So we increase our productivity, creativity, pattern recognition, all these wonderful attributes of performance skyrocket straight through the roof. So what is a flow cycle and what are these stages? The very first stage is resistance. There's always a amount of resistance for we actually get into this state of flow. For me, writing, whenever I'm starting to write, it's about 10 minutes, maybe sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes even 20 minutes. There's a resistance for me to start writing before I actually get into the flow state. It takes me to the second phase of that whole flow cycle, which is release. Now, release meaning that you have that increase of resistance, and after that there's a little bit of a release. Something is like surfing, for example. It's a minuscule amount of release, whereas sometimes if you're doing a big research, then you might release for a couple of days and let the mind kind of simmer, let your body to sort of intake all that information and resistance before we get into the third phase of the cycle, flow cycle, which is the actual flow state. So first the resistance, then a little bit of a release, or sometimes a bit more of a release, and then the actual flow state emerges. Sometimes it might be a couple hours. I would say maximum about 4 to 5 hours. Those are the deep, really full-on states of flow, which we can get into. But the very important thing to remember, or the last phase of the cycle, which is recovery. And a lot of people don't really respect or appreciate the amount of time we need to spend in the last phase before we can engage in the cycle again. So the recovery is fundamentally important, especially if we've been in these really deep states of flow, when then the recovery might be, a couple of days or 2 to 3 days before we can engage back into the cycle again and get into the loop. So 4 stages flow cycle, very interesting and important to remember that each phase of the cycle needs to be engaged in order for the whole loop to be active sustainably for long periods of time. So resistance, release, flow, and then recovery. Hopefully that's helpful. Let me know in the comments how that resonates with you. See you in the next one.